Hey, welcome back to another hand history review. This is Nick from Arch City Poker and Arch City PLO. If you guys haven't visited the new PLO site yet, go on over and check that out. It's archcityplo.com. If you're trying to learn the game from scratch, if you're trying to improve your game, that is going to be the site for you if you do play live poker. I'm loading content on their daily silver memberships. That's the first tier, the lowest tier that starts at $9.99 a month. So relatively cheap. There's gonna be a lot of great content in there. It's gonna be very worth your $10 a month essentially. So go on over there and check it out if you haven't. But let's get into the content of today's video. So I have this solid question mark label on this player. This was the first time I played with this player. This is a 2-5 game, and I think he erred more on the side of looser. He was opening quite a bit pre-flop, not like an exaggerated amount, but it was a little bit more often than what I think he probably should be. He was doing a lot of 3-betting, so I think his range, the more I started to play with him, the wider it started to get in my mind. So there is a limper in this hand. This player is 500 deep, so yeah, we're 500 deep effectively. He does try to isolate on the cutoff. He was trying to do this quite a bit with this looser player, which makes some sense. I saw him fold a few times to some 3-bets, so I decided I was going to 3-bet him in a more polarized manner, meaning I'm going to have combos near the top of my range, like aces, kings, queens, ace, king. I think button versus cutoff, I'll add like jacks, maybe some tens, and then some like baby suited aces perhaps. I don't think I want to add too much in the middle though. Like if this were a player that was opening a lot, calling a lot of 3-bets, I would rather have like king queen suited, king jack suited, king queen offsuit, stuff like that. But if he's going to fold to some 3-bets, then I want to add in some combos near the bottom of my range that look like this, that have good blocking potential. If I do get called, I have pretty decent equity and playability in position. So I do go ahead and implement the light 3-bet to make it 65. And he is going to end up calling. So we see a flop of Jack-8 for rainbow. Obviously, I flop pretty much nothing. The important thing here to keep in mind is range advantage. I'm going to have, I think, definitely some top set. I'm going to have more of the overpairs than him. I think he was capable of 4-betting with not only aces, but probably kings and queens within this dynamic as well. I think I could have some ace-jack suited, probably not as much king-jack suited. I don't think he has that much king-jack suited with how he was folding the 3-bets. This was a more aggressive table this day in particular. But I think overall, I do have a little bit of the range advantage here, and I really don't have showdown value. I have some backdoor stuff going on. So I do decide to go ahead and c-bet for half pot. I think that's pretty standard and reasonable in this spot. He decides to go ahead and call, and we see a turn of 9 of spades. So he checks to me again. I think it's pretty close in this spot whether I do bet or check. I think it depends on the opponent. Now, the problem I have with the 9 is that I think he has a fair amount of 9s in his range. He could have some combos that he could check shove as like a semi-bluff in this spot. A lot of like 10-9. He could have like some Jack-9 suited perhaps. I don't think that's opening and calling as much though. So I think this is a lot of Jack X and then like some pocket pair types of hands. Could have some 10s in his range. It's possible he has some queens as well. He probably should have a little bit of that. Maybe not as much cutoff versus button, but the thing here is I don't really have, I think, in my perceived range and in my actual range, I don't think I have a lot of queen 10 suited. I don't have 10-7 suited. I could have some Jack 9 suited, but not a lot. I don't think I have a ton of 9s, a ton of 8s. So do I really want to bet and face a shove here with my overpairs? I think I'm going to be betting with some of my better one-pair hands in the spot, mainly for protection. But this card definitely, I think, hits a fair amount of his calling range on the flop. I think it's a spot where, like I said, could do some betting. Against a player that I think is somewhat of a thinking player, I would like to show up with some completed flushes when I do check back this turn. Sometimes I can't just bet all my flush draws in the spot, especially when this is a card that might hit his range pretty well. So for those reasons, I do go ahead and check back. And river top pair, which is, I think, often going to be the best hand, but He does decide to go ahead and bet out for about 150. So yeah, and obviously I end up calling, as you can see here, but this ended up being a pretty interesting spot. It's hard to really put him on a whole lot that is beating me as far as like I don't think he has a ton of, like I said, Jack 9 suited, Jack 8 suited. He might have some 9-8 suited. Um, King Jack is definitely possible. I don't think that's calling as often here, especially offsuit King Jack. And because I block um, like some King X hands, I guess, then King Jack might not be as likely, obviously. But it is tough to imagine like a lot of the hands that he has that's beating me. I think he would have check raised some 2 pairs plus on the flop. So I don't think he has as much that's beating me as we would think on the surface. Now, at the same time, I think the king hits my range pretty well, at least my perceived range. I think I do have some kings in my range. I could have c-bet with ace-king, check back the turn. Yet he still bets. So that's why I felt like it was actually decently close. I did decide to call, though, thinking that this player was good enough that he would think my range is pretty capped once I check back this turn. He's going to take a stab with possibly a lack of showdown value. So I did decide to call. It was pretty close in my mind. He ended up having, if I can get it loaded up here, he did end up having 10-9 suited. So he had 9x. He decided he wanted to turn that into a bluff on the river. And I think it is a spot though where if I think he is capable of having some hands like this, maybe like some 7-6 suited stuff like that, then I do need to call with top pair. And I think the main thing again is it's just hard to imagine a lot of hands in his range that beat me as played. So pretty interesting spot. If you guys have any questions or comments, as I'm sure you will, then go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.